Alright everyone, now it's time to talk a little bit about the border crisis and why I see it as currently Beijing Biden's biggest problem. The economy may very well leapfrog that in the next couple of months as we enter recession territory because the legacy media won't be able to ignore how bad Biden's economic skills are if the big R word is dragged out. But at the moment, I would argue that the border crisis is number one. I would say this for several reasons. You may think the Afghanistan withdrawal is the biggest problem. After all, after the withdrawal, in part, although not in whole because of that, Biden suffered the greatest drop in approval of any modern president in a single month period. More than Bush after Katrina. Just so that we're aware, this is worse than the fact that George W. abandoned tens of thousands of U.S. citizens in the United States to suffer and wander around as internal refugees, having carpet-bagged FEMA in a response that lacked all possible strategery and protocol. To be clear, Biden suffered 0.2% more of a drop than Bush did from that. And by the way, Biden had a little bit of an advantage over Bush in the likability department until the last couple of months. I would argue, though, that the border crisis is a bigger problem, both in general and in a strategic sense in politicking, as opposed to just governance. The first problem is it's taking place in an area that already lurched way off towards the Republicans in the last election. You'll note that southern Texas, among all places in the country, was one of the most heavily and lopsidedly pro-Trump as compared to the 2016 election. Hispanics swung massively in the Republican Party's direction. Why? I'll tell you why, having actually lived there in the Rio Grande Valley. Legal immigrants, those that vote, not those that are sitting under the bridge in Del Rio. People who signed the paperwork, hired the lawyer, went through the years-long goddamn process, paid thousands of dollars, and became residents and then got their green card, became citizens, and took the oath, are hyper-patriotic in many cases. And I have a feeling that they're getting tired of the Democrats conflating them with the unwashed masses that we need to help and give welfare to. There's a very, very pro-capitalistic bent in a lot of these groups of people. By the way, Florida, oh boy, is that not going to go in the Dems' direction because of the fact that the people that are currently storming the border in Del Rio are Haitians. What do you know about the Cuban expat population in southern Florida? Well, watch the movie Scarface, watch Miami Vice, watch some things like that, and then realize that's not entirely hyperbolic. I don't see good things for the Democrats in Florida or Texas, and largely it's based on the immigration policy. It is perceived that Biden is uninterested in policing the border. He doesn't care. This is driving wages down for the working class. You're insulting the new middle class in places like southern Texas. People in the upper middle class are like, oh, Biden's going to tax us way, way more in order to pay for people that aren't really due a place in this country. None of the Haitian immigrants in Del Rio are even should be applying for asylum status. They're supposed to stay in Mexico, at least through processing. They're not legit refugees. There's a safe third country far closer that they could move to that will accept them. In fact, Mexico already did, although it won't give them any residential status. We're sitting here staring down the barrel of a gun practically with regards to COVID supposedly, and you're letting a bunch of people in that aren't even vaccinated. People are also noticing that hypocrisy, and that affects American citizens that are physically in the contiguous United States. Afghanistan didn't. Like it or not, most Americans can't find Afghanistan on a map. They don't know anything about Afghanistan, and they don't give a shit about Afghanistan. Virtue signal all you want. You don't really care about the fact that tens of thousands of Afghans were killed. I do, from my more anti-war bent, but most Americans sort of gloss it over, and they're like, no, when they read the paper, it's more about the economic news and the sports page and stuff. Most Americans didn't care, and the reason why Biden lost so much support wasn't because of the botched withdrawal itself. It was because American soldiers died. By the way, he will rebound some from that lack of approval. He won't, I think, ever be above water again, but he'll regain a point or two. The bigger problem for him, it's really twofold right now. The border crisis, because the news is actually talking about it too, so that helps as far as making sure that Biden is held accountable for his poor actions. Number one, and number two, the economy. which I expect, again, to leapfrog the border crisis as an issue, because the thing is that the economy is on the edge of recession, and the legacy media, by and large, won't put on the inflation or anything. They'll mention it passing, but they'll give the caveat, well, don't worry, transitory. I knows what he's doing, unlike Orange Man, who oversaw one of the greatest economic boom periods of modern times since the first term of Reagan. But just ignore that. Biden's good, Orange Man bad. Don't think too much about it. But once the term recession crawls in, gonna be kind of hard not to have it on the front page. Recession declared. Fed to move aggressively to tackle stagflation. Unemployment begins to rise on bad economic news. China begins to collapse, compounding the problem. By the way, China collapsing economically would not be good for the United States, just so that we're aware. I think we need to tackle China and stomp them out of economic existence and turn them into a sub-third world pariah state for their, release of COVID, among other things, and various Nazi-like crimes, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't affect the U.S. economy. Now is probably not the time to do the stomping. The time to do that was under Trump, and we did, and he had some success, and then the globalists shrieked bloody murder because they don't really have any national loyalty. I would argue that Biden will end up a long term. Over the subsequent however long he's still president before Kamala kicks him down the stairs, or he has an aneurysm or something, will lose more support because of economic issues in the border than he did because of Afghanistan. I think that he's going to end up in the 30s in approval very easily, and unlike Trump, I don't think he's going to dig his way back out of it, because he's clearly not capable of doing that even with the legacy media covering for him. By the way, did you see the other day he had that joint presser with Boris Johnson? Johnson answered some UK press questions. Biden didn't answer any questions. The people went right over to Psaki's office to file a formal complaint asking for an iteration of why Biden never talks to them. Even the legacy media's most diehard, staunch Democratic supporters, the people at CNN and MSNBC, even they're getting tired of the shtick. Oh boy, are they throwing Biden under the bus. Again, as somebody predicted. That's about all. Peace out.